Tonight, we remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on the 50th anniversary of his assassination. We will play part of his last speech and also take a look at his legacy. Then it is all about the law, as we do on Wednesdays, as we take a look at new developments in the Russia probe, including the first arrest, and how Mueller's team is focusing on President Trump. Also, Ivana Trump's former divorce lawyer will join us, weighing in on Stormy Daniels and the non-disclosure agreement that the porn star is not really paying that much attention to. What do non-disclosure agreements really mean? Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. We'll get to all the legal stories in a few minutes, but first, we begin tonight with a somber anniversary. The assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., one that demands a continuing examination of race and race relations in this country and the significance of one man in particular. It was 50 years ago tonight that the civil rights icon was gunned down in Memphis. He was there in support of striking sanitation workers. Black garbage men were still paid less than their white counterparts. And the night before King spoke at the Masonic Temple, here is what turned out to be part of his last speech.
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
King was murdered at 6:01 p.m. Memphis time. That's about an hour from now, and people already gathering at the Lorraine Hotel to remember as well as reflect. 50 years after his assassination, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is still felt here in Memphis, Tennessee.
I've looked at that door many a time since I've been here, and I've just imagined what it was like being here at that moment.
Thousands standing underneath the balcony at the Lorraine Hotel, reclaiming the very place where King lost his life.
Knowing that he was here to make a change and to be a good advocate for change, it really is a humbling experience.
Turning the anniversary of his death into a celebration of his life.
Shout hallelujah, come on, get happy. We're going to the promised land.
A reflection on how far we've come.
I would not be standing here today had it not been for Dr. King, and I am keenly aware of that.
And of how far we still have to go.
Poor people matter all around this country, and we have to continue to advocate on behalf of the voiceless and the nameless, because we are all a part of the fabric of this life. And when one string unravels, we all unravel.
Tributes are pouring in from across the country, and in Atlanta, at King's gravesite, the eternal flame symbolizing King's fight for the beloved community is still burning bright. And for more on the life and the legacy of Dr. King, we're joined by a good friend to the program, Reverend Thomas Nins. He's the pastor for the First Baptist Church of Greenwich. He's also chaplain for the Greenwich Police Department and diversity outreach coordinator at Brunswick. As always, Reverend, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And usually we talk on MLK Day, as well as other times where there's racial strife in this country and a need to bring it together. But let's divide this conversation into both the man and the message. He was only 39.
Young, right?
You'd think I'd know that, but when I saw it, I did a double take to accomplish all that and to understand not only the risk, but apparently the night before he died, to those closest to him, he said, I have no fear, not out of braggadocio, but he knew in some ways that might be a consequence of what he was trying to do to move this country and move equality. But the man, my God, what he accomplished.
It's amazing. And one of the things that stands out for me when we think about him, this is a man whose death is as significant as his life in terms of the American psyche and how we understand our progress as a nation.
The message, there was both a will to resist, but also a move for a right to vote and a right to sit at the table and a right to drink from the same water fountain in the restrooms, etc. And he preached nonviolence when certainly there was not unanimity that that was the right way to do it. Talk about the message and how he interwove not just faith, but also really strength and conviction at a time where it's easy to say in 2018, oh, of course, you know, we're going to move for these social changes, but there were really fire hoses and dogs and much worse that were around at the same time.
It's a great observation. I think the farther we are removed from that time, the harder it is to put it into context because there's so much that we take for granted. And so when we hear things about sitting at a lunch counter, it doesn't really register because, well, we sit at lunch counters. When we talk about going into certain department stores, well, we go into so it's hard to understand that at its core, the civil rights movement was a human rights movement. It was a cry out for all people to be treated fairly as human beings. Civil rights is the legal side of what was taking place.
And for people that underestimate the challenge, it wasn't simply, okay, this is me against Wallace down south. You had presidents, more than one, who said, you're moving too fast. I can give a crumb, but I can't give a meal. Conversely, you had people who said, why are we going to stand and take the beatings? Why don't we swing back here? And to navigate all those different constituencies and try to hold it together, unbelievable both strength, but tact. And, you know, we talk about a battle for the soul of this country. I mean, put it in context even to today, to be able to bring those disparate parties together, not all willingly, I grant you, but still to be able to do that is unbelievable.
One of the things that happens when we take a look at Dr. King and the movement is that we'll focus in on a Wallace, so we'll focus in on, as you said, the presidents. There were people within the community that he was attempting to liberate that were also opposed to what was taking place. They also thought that he was moving too fast.
He was about justice at its core, I think. Social, but also economic justice. And I ask you this every year on MLK Day. If he could have looked forward and see where we are now, and there have been signposts. Obviously, we've had a black president here. We've had many cultural moments that have defined where we've seen people achieve some of the greatest successes, in regardless of the disciplines. But yet, still, that chasm exists. Start on the economic firstly. What do you think he'd say if he could see in 2018 what his life work led to?
I think that he would have to say that we've come a long way. I think that he would have to say that there is a distinction between equality, as we understand equality, and equity, and that he would look at our society and he would look at our progress and he would say there's still work to be done.
And I'll talk later with my legal panel. We have seen a spate of shootings, many of which even captured on video, that resurrect the ongoing concern that depending on the color of your skin, you will get different treatment and sometimes fatal treatment at the hands of law enforcement. Some shootings, people will maintain justified. Some, it's a very tough argument to make. And you're the perfect person to navigate this. I mean, you both counsel both police departments and also you speak to the flock on Sunday. What would he say in terms of 2018? Where we are, the rates of incarceration, especially for young black men in this country, whatever standard you want to use, what would he say troubles him most, maybe pleasantly surprised? What would be your best guess?
I think that when you talk about faith, a system of beliefs, he would say that the system of beliefs that is still troubling in America is that one group of people thinks that somehow they are better or different than another group in America. And because of that belief system, because of that process, it empowers them to act in ways that otherwise they may not.
he spoke about the soul of America and what he believed down deep there was there and what he hoped that soul would reveal. We've had a lot of conversations in this country in the last year plus about what, when the rock turns over, some of the soul says. Charlottesville being a perfect example, and other comments, tweets, or otherwise. What do you believe he would say about that? Because to many it's shocking, seemingly, that the divide is growing larger in this country, not even along just racial lines, but along so many other lines. In many ways, people worry that we're growing farther apart as a country rather than together.
I think that we have to be mindful that the promised land that he spoke about is not just a destination, it's a process. So we are continually moving through the process. I saw Bernice King with George Wallace's daughter on a show, and they talked about the irony that these two daughters of these two divergent men come together and embrace one another as sisters. That's progress. That is an example of a promised land activity.
Finally, because it is the anniversary of his death, I saw Jesse Jackson say, and he was with him for much of the civil rights movement, including in the fateful days leading to his death, that he lived as he died. What do you think he means by that?
I think that King's quote, that character is what you do when no one is watching, is what he's talking about. That when the camera's off and the reporters are gone, King believed what it was that he spoke about.
Reverend, as always, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's always great to be with you.
Coming up next, we'll bring in our panel of attorneys. And the first story we take a look at is that Russia probe. We have developments, also the first sentencing. We'll also follow the subpoenas and how looking at them can in some ways give insight into Mueller's case and where the probe may go from here.